I think of metaphysics as the study of those questions about reality that aren't settled purely by scientific inquiry. In the relatively recent history of philosophy, the question of whether there are different kinds of existence was answered with a negative. I'm friendly to the idea that there are many different ways to exist, rather than just one, and that some kinds of existence might have a sort of superiority to others, that they might be more robust or more real than others. I recently wrote a book called The Fragmentation of Being, in which I defend the view that there are different kinds of existence. The third chapter of the book, I focus on time, looking at the view that what makes the present distinguish is that presently existing things exist in a different way than past things. So I don't think the study of history is fiction. It seems like history is a body of truth, so it must in some way be about real things. But the way in which Abe Lincoln is real isn't the same way in which you and I are real. One of the things I'm interested in is the status of negative entities like holes or shadows. There's some reason to think that they exist. We can count them. I can notice that the shadow is moving as we walk across the street, that it contracts and grows and so forth. When you get off a subway, you should mind the gap, because if you fall into the gap, you can break your leg. So it seems like, given that there are all these truths about these things, they must exist in some way, but they don't seem to exist in the way in which the train exists, or the person who's casting the shadow. They seem to have a different kind of reality, and maybe even a kind of attenuated or deficient reality. So part of what I try to do in my own metaphysical work is to figure out whether, at the end of the day, it makes sense to talk about some kinds of reality being better or worse than others. And I think the answer is yes, but it's not obvious. I also work in the history of philosophy. But sometimes the filter of history is imperfect. Racism, anti-Semitism, and sexism can play a big role in determining whose voices get heard once history is marched forward. One of them is Edith Stein. She's a Catholic saint, but she is also a very interesting philosopher in her own right. She wrote important works on empathy, and she was murdered by the Nazis in World War II. Another person I'm interested in is Mary Calkins. She did important work in philosophy, but she was also a psychologist. She did write a dissertation. She even defended the dissertation, but the Harvard Corporation refused to award her a degree. But nonetheless, she wrote a lot of stuff, including a book that was reprinted over 20 years, 9 times. If you're looking to do interesting new work in the history of philosophy, that's going to be a good place to look at these figures that are marginalized for non-philosophical reasons. Here at Notre Dame, philosophers are cultivated as part of the integral mission of the university. Pretty much any topic in philosophy that anyone might be curious about, there's somebody here who's thinking about it. One charge that people might have about philosophy is that it's useless. This kind of natural curiosity that all people have, trying to figure out our place in the world, where we come from, whether or not we're free, even what kind of existence do we have. That's trying to figure out our place in the world. And the fact that we're all interested in these questions, I think, indicates something that we do see a value in them. And so I think I've been very lucky to be able to do the things that I do, because I do think the questions that we investigate, they're meaningful, they matter, they're deeply connected with pretty much everything we do. And so there's no escaping metaphysics. But why would we want to? It's so interesting and so fun to pursue.